The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
This episode is brought to you by The Arena. The Arena focuses on helping law enforcement and security professionals achieve their ultimate work experience, curriculum, and fitness goals. Visit thearenatoronto.com.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful special edition. As always, everyone that comes on this show, they've been like spotlighted for what they do. And today we have Stephen Poplawski. Did I say that properly?
You did, sir.
Stephen Poplawski. I'm going to say that again. And who is Stephen? Stephen is the CEO and founder of Step Training. Okay. And what exactly is Step Training? Well, you're going to find out in today's episode. And welcome very much. Welcome to the show,
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about all this stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so our focus and our emphasis today for all the listeners is going to be about why training is so important, okay, and why it's actually, in my opinion, it should be mandatory in any industry. Specifically, we're talking about the law enforcement security industry, but even more stripping it down, would you say your training is very applicable to the security industry, or would you say it goes a little bit further out?
It started actually for policing is where it began, and then it moved into many other different areas. So the way I pitch it is that our training is for anyone that deals in a frontline capacity, whether it's in a security business, policing, customer service, outreach. We do a lot of stuff with outreach-related people that work in shelters, things of that nature. So it's for people that are interacting with other people that are often in crisis or having some sort of acute emotional reaction to something.
Okay, and a fun fact here is that you used to be a police officer with Peel.
I did, yes, sir. I did 20 years with Peel.
20 years. So Steve is not only someone that can basically speak from experience, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the stuff that you put together was from your experiences, quite a bit of it.
It definitely had some content from my experiences being a police officer in Ontario, but it's also been brought in by many other experiences that I've had, including working with academics, researchers, educators. We've had the privilege of working in different parts of the world, so I've had experiences as far out as Iceland and back, and that's all come together to bring our products to what they are today.
Okay, nice. So for yourself, I always like to go back into an origin story, right? Obviously, you did something that many people on this show that listen to it have aspirations for in getting into policing. Also, we have a lot of people that are already current law enforcement. However, you decided that you wanted to kind of pursue something more after your 24th, what was it, your 20th or 24th?
20th.
Your 20th year, and that was getting into training.
Yes.
Let's go into that. Why?
Well, I'd spent the past close to 10 years in the training unit, the use of force unit in my old police service. And before that, I've had my own dojos along the way for martial arts, and I've always been in a training capacity. I was a lifeguard trainer for a while. It's always been part of what I did. And I came to realize that although I enjoyed my time in policing, I learned a lot, I appreciate all the experience that I had, that I'm a trainer. That's what I do. And, you know, within the policing world, you have to move on to other things and stuff. And I was at a kind of a crossroads where it's going to be, I'm no longer able to train in that capacity there. So I had to make, do I want to keep training, or do I want to go back to the policing role? And I just decided that I'm a trainer. That's what I do. Okay. So it's not an easy decision to leave, but in doing that, I'm able to pursue the thing that I like. And now I'm doing it in my own way, which opened doors that wouldn't have been open before.
Okay, that's amazing. Now, coming that you do have a background as a police officer, and that you do now have a career now with basically training, would you say that police are given all the training and all the tools that they need? Are they given enough training to make them successful on the job?
I have multiple answers to that. And the first answer is that they are giving a lot of training. There is a lot of ongoing training, but that training varies between awareness training, which would be like your computer stuff, people looking at computer courses, and then, you know, getting some basic information on things. So my response to that is it's really not about how much training they get, it's the depth of training they get on any one subject. That's where I would put our attention on. Because if you look at what they actually get trained in, there's a lot. But then if you actually look at how much time did they spend on that topic, you know, what type and what resources and what style of training was used in that, that's where you're going to see areas for improvement, I think, is getting the depth of that. And I understand there's a lot of people, like some of these services are huge, and how do you train everyone? But at the end of the day, it's not about the fact that you had training, it's about how much depth did you have to that training, and are you able to replicate that in a real life application when required under the stress of what the real job actually entails.
Okay.
That's where we have to see if we're being effective or not, is in the real world, was it applied?
Okay. So let me ask you this then. They do get a lot of training, and you know, we can identify that, you know, maybe some of the training they can get, they can have more training of. If let's just say you had the opportunity, if the prime minister or the mayor says to you, see, we want you right now to alter a little bit of this training, what would be one thing that you'd want to see more training of with police services?
Skills, physical skills. Okay. And I don't just mean defensive tactics.
Okay.
I mean the physical skills of communication, the physical skills of body language, the physical skills of report writing, it's a physical skill piece. They have a lot of courses and content that is theoretical, that they give them working models of this and working models of that. But at the end of the day, it's the skills. You know, can I actually do this under these circumstances? Okay. And I'd also want to see a more modulated approach where it starts very slow and then you build it up over a consistent period of time. Because, you know, if you relate this back to think about the martial arts for a second. If you just want to go there for a minute. You start off as a white belt. You show up, you know nothing. What do you start doing? You start doing back break falls, right?
Yeah.
You learn how to bow when you enter onto the mat. You do the most basic things, and you do that for a lot. In my case, I easily a year, they stuck me in a corner doing back break falls.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at all the cool stuff going on around you, and you want to do all that, but at least in that world, because you have the time commitment to it, they start you right, where you can't do any of that until you learn how to protect yourself in falling down. Right, or blocking your head, or some of the most basic skills. So that's where we have to get those basic skills so solid that they don't even have to think about it anymore. And then we can start doing all these add-on pieces and more, you know, in-depth stuff and complicated stuff. But it's only after those basic core skills. So I think we need to look at what is really needed in, say, policing or security. What are the skill sets that are actually required? And then make sure that that foundation is rock solid through time on the mat, if that's what it is, a defensive, and just doing the reality-based training to support it, and ensuring that the practice piece is there, so they can actually demonstrate the ability to do it in a similar environment to what they'll be working in.
Okay. No, listen, that's amazing. That's amazing, and I think it's a good also segue into, like, when you left the police and you decided to kind of create this new entity called STEP training. It kind of, like, I would say, is starting to put you, or maybe already has put you on the map of the stuff that you're teaching and how applicable it is. I want to just read a little blurb from your website, which, by the way, you got a great website. And for those that are listening, I'm reading off of steptraininginc.com. And basically, as your subheading, training in de-escalation and resiliency. And basically what STEP training is: professional training in modern evidence-based de-escalation skills for municipalities, teachers, security services, police, and customer service professionals. Your programs address communication, mental health training, decision-making, situational awareness, and stress modulation for improved performance and resiliency. And nice and bold, which I like, is an industry leader in Toronto and the GTA with a 98.6% student satisfaction rating held since 2016. That's important because that means people are actually benefiting from this. And I actually was talking to one of your students.
Okay.
And he was telling me that it just recently, this past week, he was dealing with a situation where he had to approach a very volatile issue, and through a script that he has learned from STEP training, he was able to put it into practice. He did it around his colleagues, and it worked. And he knew, obviously, it worked, but it just reaffirmed to him, this stuff really works. And his colleagues saw this, and I think they might be potentially new students of yours down the road as well. But to me, tell me a little bit about what makes your training unique.
The first thing is, I would say, is that it's modern. So I'm not selling you a VCR from 1984. Okay, things change, things evolve, and even my own content, I might have something in place I think is pretty solid, and then 4 months later I'm already thinking about adjusting that based on some new things that have happened. We have to adjust to the fact that everyone has cell phones on them now. That's the way it is, right? We have to adjust to the fact that things can be broadcast live as they're happening. I mean, that's different, right, than the old days. It's happening right now. So we have to keep up with this stuff. They say technology replaces itself about every 14 to 30 days. It completely becomes brand new again. So we have to keep up to that stuff. So in terms of why we're different is we tailor make our products to our clients. So I don't have one basic thing where I just say, there you go.
It's not cookie cutter.
Right. If I went to, let's say I was working with librarians today, or customer service professionals that are in the sales department or something like that, that's different than an enforcement role that might be security, police, MLEOs. There's different context behind what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. So the pillars of the training remain the same, but all this kind of the smaller pieces around it are all tailor-made to fit that client. And then everything is run through the filter of reality-based training.
Okay.
It has to be.
Okay.
So, you know.
And when you say reality-based training, are you referring to like scenarios?
Yeah, scenario work with how people would think about it is putting them through scenarios. And I don't actually like the term to say realistic scenarios. It's about them demonstrating the skill sets that they've learned.
Okay.
Right, under a controlled environment. And the other thing that we do is a lot of people are out there teaching to what I call high-risk, low-frequency events. So the person with the knife, the active shooter, these are all like really, they don't happen often, but when they do, they're a major, and that's fine. We do definitely have to have some training in those areas, but where I put my training is on the other 99%, which is the high frequency, lower risk stuff that people do, because that's the stuff they do on a day-to-day basis. So dealing with emotionally escalated people is something that you will encounter on a daily basis. If you're working as a security officer in Toronto, or if you're an MLEO in some other town, you're going to deal with escalated people all the time. So we can't assume communication skills are just there. They have to be taught. You know, me putting on a uniform of some sort doesn't make me a communicator. And communication, de-escalation, body language can be taught just like you would teach any other sport. You can teach it and break it down into things that make you much more consistent in your approaches to people, which means you're likely to get consistent and predictable outcomes. And that's what our training speaks to, is the ability to actually predict your outcomes based on the things that you're doing.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. No, that's good, man.
That's better, right? Than
100%.
just kind of like, I hope it all works out in the end.
No, absolutely.
No, it's predictable.
Yes. So you mentioned that your training is modernized and you're always looking at improving it and updating it and, you know, evolving it. What mechanisms do you have in check or in place to make
Research is a big one.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So it's very popular right now. They talk about situational awareness.
Yes.
That's a very popular topic right now.
Yeah, I see it all over LinkedIn.
And, you know, I see it on people offering it, and people can do whatever they do, but I see situational awareness courses offered online, 100% online.
Yes.
And I have to ask, well, how do you do that? Right? You know, but anyways, the way that I would approach it, so one of my colleagues, Dr. Paula Denota, just finished a huge research project out in Finland where they broke down situational awareness into 7 key components. And that was based on a huge amount of research, applied research in Finland at their police college. And then she's put this paper together with colleagues, and it breaks it all down. So now I would take that and start looking at what she found and her colleagues found in that, and start implementing some of those concepts back into our own situational awareness. And that's new. That just came out like a month ago. Okay. And that's what I mean. I'm always looking at what's the newest piece, what's the validity of that new piece, and is it something that I need to adjust my own content to and make sure that it's relevant?
That's good. That's really good. And you mentioned something about, for example, phones. Like those are the biggest thing in the last like 10, 15 years.
Right.
Like, even we can go as far as 20 plus years, where phones are a new piece into our equation.
Of course.
I mean, and I'm sure that, you know, it's good to be aware of like how training can even be utilized with that kind of technology. Who knows what's going to happen in 10 years time from now? The bottom line is you're very aware that the training does need to evolve.
It has to.
Yeah.
It's not just what you do, it's how it appears.
Yes.
right? So you could be doing everything absolutely correctly, but if it's not captured the right way, you're going to have issues. You're going to have problems. You're going to have conversations you don't want to have about it.
That's so good.
So, I always say it's not just because you can do an arm bar doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, that's right.
So the equation that I put into all my training is the can should.
Okay.
Just because I can
doesn't mean you should.
Should I?
Exactly.
And the answer usually is no.
Right.
It's usually a resounding no. So we have to know the difference between the two.
Yes.
And it's nice to have the skill sets, but what's the best one under the circumstances, factoring in public scrutiny? We have to, any training that you offer now, you have to have in some way built into that program the element of public scrutiny because it's going to be there.
Yes.
Baton would be a great example of that, where even if you use it 100% correctly, with the right authority, appropriately, what's the public view going to be on that?
As soon as they see that person wind that arm back,
right?
Yeah.
You're never going to convince the public that was okay. That doesn't mean that we can't use it.
Yes.
It just means that we know going into it that a perfect application of the baton is still going to draw a massive amount of public scrutiny, probably negative, into that. So when we build training around baton, I would want to make sure that I prepare my students for that fact, meaning that they know how to articulate very specifically what they did, why they did it, what the criteria was, what their authority was, and that they're ready to go on that point, right?
Okay.
And then we can win the public back. And you can say, in this particular incident, it was actually necessary and appropriate.
Right.
And we win them back.
Right.
But that up front is always going to be there. Always going to be there.
Yeah, that's good. So there's a lot of entities, and I just do want to focus for this specific one on security.
Yes.
There's a lot of entities out there that they actually don't have any training. They have no training in place.
Right.
Or if they do have any training in place, it's the absolute bare minimum.
Right.
What is your thoughts on specifically the law enforcement / security industry about ensuring that they're giving themselves or giving their people the tools and equipment needed to be successful on the job?
Well, it's obviously money's a factor. It costs money to do good training. Right?
It also costs money to go to court.
It costs a lot of money to go to court, right? But do you want to buy a Cavalier or a Corvette?
Right.
That's the question of the day. So when you send your people out there, I think there is an obligation that you've given them the tools necessary, and not just kind of surface level tools, real tools to deal with the things that are out there, because that's why they're there. That's the whole purpose. But to do that means an investment in time, money, trainers, spaces. All these things have to be in place. But to not do that, it's only a matter of time before something comes back. And it could be the absolute worst case scenario to where someone's been harmed in some way, to just basic liability related issues.
Okay, so I think that's fantastic that you're saying this. The other thing to note is that for a lot of people that do shun training because of cost or because they don't see the value to it, those same people, and I know of many examples, are the ones that will be like the individual who doesn't see the value of a home alarm or a camera until their house gets actually robbed.
And then they're shopping for them.
Now they're shopping for them right now. And that's where suddenly now, urgency kicks in, right? And
exactly. Let me say this to you. I'm going to sell you a helmet right now for your sport bike.
Yes.
Okay? I have one over here. I found it at a garage sale. Cost $5, a couple cracks in it. Or you can get this brand new one over here. It costs $300, but it's absolutely 100% guaranteed to protect your skull if you ever get in an accident.
Right.
Which one do you want to buy?
100%, the $300
right?
one, 100%.
So,
but most people, including myself at some point, because I had to have that shift in mindset. But most people will be like, well, $5, $300. I mean, am I gonna fall if I'm properly like? So they start weighing up their best outcome or their best scenario.
Right.
But then if we always looked at life like that, we just kind of exposing ourselves.
That reminds me of a quote. It's we have reasons and we have outcomes.
Yes.
Right? So the reasons are, well, I probably won't fall, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the day, right, the outcome might be you actually fell. So you got to work to the outcome piece.
Yes.
And say, although it's not likely, is it possible that I'm going to need this expensive helmet?
Yes.
And the answer is always yes. It's always yes.
Always. And here's another reason why I think it's so important that people and I say people, first of all, people should be investing in themselves. If they can't, 100% their organization for their industry should be investing in their people. But there was an article recently in the Toronto Star that stated that crime as a whole in the last couple of years, more than ever as we lead into 2023, is on the rise.
Right.
Every day there's something happening. I mean, just yesterday on the news, a 15-year-old kid was shot outside of his school.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Like, these things are happening. So if a lot of these environments do have, for example, protection, security, police, whatever that is in place, if they do have that there, and I'm speaking specifically for the security industry right now, do you really want to put your employees in these environments that they cannot protect themselves?
Right.
I always ask our people, Steve, whenever they're coming in, I always ask, why do you do what you do? When I talked at a class recently that all want us to become police officers, I says, why? Why do you want to be a police officer? And I find a lot of times they're going to give you a generic answer.
I want to help people.
I want to help people. But let's strip that down. And I find as you start stripping the layers away, that they're doing it because it's a cool job, because it pays well, but they're not really understanding what it entails from them. I know some police officers that have identified the training that I receive is good, but I need more. So they'll go enroll, for example, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes because they may end up on their backs. How do they do something if they have to end up there, right? So I think it's so important for people listening is that training is not just about a skill. It's about something that you can put into application in case you need to.
Of course. It's your security blanket. It's knowing that I have it. And, now that I know that I have it, I'm even less likely to need it or use it.
Yes.
Because my confidence is there. Because I know if I did need it, So I think we have to 100%. Everything is built off of training. Anything that comes up after that, is only as good as the training that held it, that put it together in the first place.
Are you ever frustrated by seeing how some training is conducted by
100%? I'll give you an example. I've seen recently, more than once, I've seen people teaching handcuffing online. And then they use a webinar where the instructor kind of shows you how to do it.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
So for me, how can you?
How can you? And yet it's happening.
Yes.
And then that person's going to send a certificate to these people and say, you're now trained.
Right.
It hasn't factored in the jackets, people wearing different kinds of clothes. It hasn't factored in physiology. You haven't really observed them do it because it's through a webinar online.
Yes.
No, I say no. There's certain things that we can get away with online. Online has its place.
Yes.
It definitely has its place. But there's certain things that are not online content. And when you talk about physical skill sets, whether it's DT, handcuffing, baton, communication, de-escalation, those have to be practiced in real time with real people.
I'm so in agreement with you. I mean, I think what COVID did a lot of things, but it did pique the interest of some entrepreneurs. I thought, hey, listen, let's put this all online and make some money off it and give a certificate. One of the things that I've always, been an advocate for, and I think it'd be good, is that the ministry, the security ministry, the correctional services, that they elevate the standard, right? I mean, imagine if they said, look, we recognize this training if it is done like this, or if something. But it's such a work in progress because right now, as someone that's in the middle of this environment, it is a business. It's a business right now, and the business of politics seem to be winning a lot of times because some things that are happening are just not making sense.
And when you're dealing at a higher government level, it might take 10 years to make one change.
Yeah, 100%.
It literally can take 10 years to change one thing.
For sure.
Or
Or something really bad happening to maybe make it into
and then it's a knee-jerk reaction to that.
That's it.
Where we haven't done the research and all the pieces to ensure that what we're doing is the right thing. So we just have to, we don't want knee-jerk reactions.
No.
If you're always looking at the newest content, the newest research, the newest applications of something, you're less likely to have knee-jerk reactions because you're in the front. You're the one leading the pack.
That's it.
When you let that slide and something bad happens and you realize, hey, we should have changed this 2 years ago, or this hasn't been the case for the last 5 years, then you're in this massive, knee-jerk reaction to it.
Yes.
And then you're under a gun to try to get it done as fast as possible. It doesn't mean, quality necessarily is going to be there because of the speed in which you're trying to accomplish it. So it's always better to be in the front, right? Setting the pace. And then we just make small adjustments based on what's going on. When I talked about that paper I'm going to adjust some of my own stuff to, they're not going to be major changes because I'm already doing a lot of very good stuff that's modern. It just means in that it caught my attention on a few points that I know I can, kind of adjust things a little bit. But it's not I'm not throwing the whole thing out, starting over again, because I'm always trying to stay on top of it and be in front of it.
Okay, so if I'm a business, okay, and I know you do a lot of work with governments, municipalities, lots of corporate businesses. I know you do a lot of that. Let's just say I'm listening to this podcast right now, and I'm like, man, I have like 100 employees. Now, let's just say, because we have been talking about security, I'm a security company in this specific case here, right?
Yep.
And I don't have this training. And I don't even know. I know that I've given them some training. It's been maybe some use of force, maybe some of this, but it's something that is just not focused on. And I come to you right now. I come up to Step Training and go, Steve, help me. What do I do? What is the process? Do you have to go through some sort of consultation process to find out where their level is at? So
I look at what are your needs? Why are you asking for training? That's the first thing I say. Is why are you coming to me asking me for training? Because usually something's happened.
I have a lawsuit.
Something has occurred. Right. So I want to know what that is. It could just be there's a pressure from the staff themselves that they've asked for it, or it could be something like a lawsuit or something like that. But something's happened that's pushed that forward. So that's the first piece. Well, why are you asking me? And then what is it that you hope to accomplish from this? Because I'm not setting your training goal. You're setting the training goal. I'm just going to help you achieve that training goal, whatever it might be. And then I will gently nudge people in the right direction. So if they're immediately going to online, it doesn't mean we can't do that. But I mean, I will always start with my 2-day de-escalation process, because that gives time for all the needed parts. And then based on scheduling and the things that happen in the real world, we can adjust that here and there. But I'll never adjust it to a point where the quality is lost.
Okay.
But I'll change the expectation. So on a 2-day program, my expectations are that your students are going to get this.
Okay.
On a 1-day, I'm going to say, quite bluntly, I can't do this anymore, and I can't do this because it requires more time. So we're going to do this, this, and this. But the things we do, we're going to do very well.
What are some of the things that you guys do teach, like, or would you say are very popular, and why you're requested for? I know you have an arsenal of topics.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to, it's basically how you interact with other human beings, especially when they're emotionally escalated. So some of the things that we teach that are very popular would be the body language pieces, because we know most communication happens through body language, not through words. It's the articulation piece is very important, especially if you're in the security business, MLEOs, all that kind of stuff, because it's not just what you did. You have to be able to explain it to somebody else. You need to be able to write it down into a report piece. And then I think the thing that we do well is that we have an actual model, a graphic model of what de-escalation is. And then we can take the core pieces of that and relate it right back to that. So we basically start at the beginning of the model, and we start developing content and training structure that supports that piece of the model. And it builds over the day or 2 days or however long you're into that program. It builds it up until you go from really basic stuff to very much more complex stuff by the end of it, because your confidence and abilities get better. Then it's all supported. If we're experts in anything, it would be really de-escalation would be the top with our reality-based training. We've been facilitators right around the world, facilitating this sort of scenario-based learning and things like that. And that's what really draws out. Because if I don't do the reality-based training, I'll never see your reaction to your own physiology.
Oh, wow. Wow.
How would I?
Yes.
I'd never see it. So you might perfectly replicate handcuffing in a non-stressful environment. That might be perfect.
Yes.
But now I actually have you do it for real under something that's simulated stress as a real-world environment, and it starts to fall apart.
Okay.
And now I can see, oh, they need more work on this.
Interesting.
They need more work. And the other thing is they see they need more work on this.
Okay.
It's not just me seeing it. They see it.
It's something I actually experienced something like this about 3 years ago. We had a training session here, and after the training session was completed, we had scenarios.
Yes.
And we saw so many of our people fail.
Right.
And then we leveled up the training and started giving more pieces to the pie. And we recorded everything, and when we played it back to them after they completed the second level, they were so surprised. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is how I responded.
Right.
I'm supposed to be a supervisor. This is how I'm giving direction. This is how I'm looking at it. So I think you're saying something right now that is extremely important. It's like I always, it's like someone saying, let's do a simulation of an altercation. Punch me here. Like, okay, now I've moved my head.
Right.
Like, this is not how things work out there. It's a
That's
lot
the
of
most basic starting point.
Yes.
But it's definitely not representing what real life would be.
Correct.
Let me ask you, like, let's say you came to me and said, because we also do the DT, we also do the baton, the handcuff, we do all that stuff as well, if we're asked to do that. And you said, hey, I want to put my new guards through defensive tactics. I'll be like, okay, well, what do you want to focus on? And a lot of people will give me a list of like 10 things. I want to do headlock escapes. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Yeah.
I go, do your new staff know the difference between the right foot and the left foot? Right? You see what I'm saying is to teach that. I'll just use an example. To teach a headlock escape, what else do you need to know? You need to know timing. You need to know positioning. You need to know about elbows being in versus out. You need to know left foot, right foot. You need to know how to protect your equipment when you're in that position. There's 100 things. And before I can even touch that topic, I have to ensure that all those other things are in place, which my earlier comment, that's the back brake falls in the corner. That's what that is.
Right.
But in a policing security type world, we kind of bypass those fundamental pieces and we just say, okay, today, guys, we're going to work on headlock escapes. What level of assumptions are we making when we do that? Right? Have you ever been hit before? That would be a good question to ask.
Yeah.
Because
That's a
don't put
fantastic
someone in a
question.
boxing class if they've
Yes.
never been hit before. You need to warm them up to that. You need to build their confidence up to that. You have to have a process for that. Just to put them in a boxing class and have them take a hit, that's no value to them.
Well, I want to just tag on to that point. So I actually did boxing for a little bit in my
Me
younger
too.
years. And I remember one time I came into them with this confidence. I don't know where it came from. And I was a bigger guy back then. So there was people that were like, shorter than me. But in my mind, I'm thinking I'm bigger, I'm whatever. And then I start sparring with this younger guy, and he's shorter than me. And I can tell you this, being a tall guy, Steve, I never really dealt with a lot of confrontation.
Right.
Okay. So I remember here at this point getting punched. And it was really my first time getting punched in the face. I think I was like 14 or 15. And it rocked my world where the first thing, I remember the emotion, I started to cry out of frustration and anger, thinking, what is this feeling that I have right now? But it when I got hit, it literally took me out of my world, meaning as in if the guy decided to continue punching,
Right.
I would have been finished.
That's what training's for.
That's
You do
correct.
it in the training environment.
That's it. So everything that I'm hearing
right.
right now is that. If you have that training in play, you know what that feels like. Now you can respond.
Right. It's not as shocking to you. You've gone through it before. The frame of mind is if you've done it once, you can do it 100 times.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what the skill is.
Right.
If I've proven to myself I can do it once, then it's possible I can do it 100 times.
Correct.
So if you've taken one hit in training, it's now you've gone through that. That's why new officers will get OC sprayed in training so that they've experienced it in a training environment and things like that.
Yes.
Just so you know. But the thing, the fundamental problem that we're having is we're skipping the foundational pieces because those are the most timely pieces.
And what are those foundational pieces?
Timing, speed, confidence, the ability to control your body, to block, to know where your elbows are, your hands are. I'm talking about physical skills right now. It's all those foundational pieces, how to fall down, get back up again.
So you need
basic
to have
fitness
this.
levels.
Yes, yes.
Basic fitness things.
Right.
You're going to teach someone how to box. Have you checked in on their cardio? Can they walk up the stairs and not have to take a stop halfway? Because we know as boxers, within 2 minutes, you really get a good sense of how your cardio is going right now.
Yeah.
So we have to train for the outcome that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And
And
that's important.
gently running on the treadmill is not boxing training.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
not.
Exactly.
It's not. So I just think we just have to look at, and one of the issues I think we have is we've identified too many things we're trying to get done in the beginning. This is, when I build scenarios, I'll go to places and I'll see what they're doing with their scenario work. And I'll see the most complex things. It's like all these tangents and pieces going on. And, what if this and that? I call them the ninjas in the ceiling kind of scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Where the students are looking for the people hiding in the rafters that are going to
Right.
suddenly spring out like Spider-Man and attack them.
Yeah.
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 And They just need the most basic things. The most. Your use of forest requalification every year should be based on the most basic core skills that are used on an everyday basis. That's what it should be about. Because without those, none of the other stuff matters anyways.
That's so good. That's so good. I mean, again, when I hear analogies here and runbacks, if we go back to the Karate Kid, which is a timeless piece,
Yep.
okay, at the very beginning, Mr. Miyagi is teaching Daniel things that he doesn't understand the application.
Right.
Paint the fence.
And he does it over and over and over
But he's
again.
not saying paint the fence, sand the floors, do the doors. He's giving
One
him
thing.
one thing at a time to do.
Right.
So when you said a lot of training entities, I do see when they advertise, you're going to learn in this session A, B, C, D, E, F. No, you just need to get A down first.
Let's deal with A.
Yeah, get A down first.
And the
yeah.
instructors have to have the right perspective. So I have to set the expectations realistically.
Right.
So if I'm looking at let's say I want to do A, B, and C today, and I have 8 hours to do it, and I'm looking at my class, I'm like, it's going to be a long time on A. I need to adjust my expectations. And I do that all the time. I'll go to my client and say, I know you wanted me to cover all these things, but in working with your staff so far, I think we're going to need a lot more time on this first. And let's just get this done really well. You know, so until you get that core skill in place, why would I go further? Why would I go on?
Okay.
You know, I don't think so.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. Okay, let's right now do a little thing where we educate the consumer, the public, okay?
Okay.
If they're looking for a service now, like what you provide, right? And they don't know what step training is, or maybe they have heard of step training, what would you tell the consumer? Look, if you're going to look to bring this into your workforce, and these are the things that you should at least make sure from a baseline are looking for in a company that has this. Right. What would you say those would be? And feel free to share from the stuff that you do.
Sure, of course. So the first thing is the level and credibility of the instructors teaching it. What's the instructors that are coming into your organization to teach this stuff? What's their background? And it has to be more than just the application side. They have to be skilled teachers, skilled instructors. Because I could be a practitioner. I could be excellent at something. It doesn't mean I can relay it to somebody else.
So, for example, I'm a drummer. Ask me to teach my kid how to play the drums right now.
Yeah.
He'll probably hate drums.
Right.
Yeah. So I see what you're saying there.
Yeah. So you have to evaluate who's coming in and what's their background. The other thing I really think that you should look for is a varied background. And what I mean by that is we're not just an ex-police officer company where I have some ex-police officers. We get together and we go out and we teach various things. I have academics. I have researchers. I have a doctor that provides us a lot of stuff in terms of content development and things like that. I have people that work in the cities in different capacities that can relate the whole city experience and working within a city and somewhere. So you want a varied response to your stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not Steve's idea that we're teaching. It's bringing all these contents together and then all these experts together and then putting that into the best possible product based on research and stuff. Okay. I think your stuff should be evidence-based and not just because I said the word evidence-based.
Okay.
It actually has to be. Our company did 18 months of direct research on behalf of Ontario, where we actually did applied research in relation to some policing stuff. So we've walked the walk. We did that for 18 solid months.
Yes.
You know, our content is delivered at the University of Toronto, as an example. We're tied to these organizations that are heavy on the research side and the vetting. It's being vetted through these different groups.
Okay.
It's been vetted out in Iceland, you know, as an example. So you want to make sure that content is going through a process that is self-checked. I'm always surprised that when I look at a company and they don't offer up evaluations at the end.
Wow.
To your students.
Yes.
You know, what are you afraid of?
Yeah,
like,
but that's
you know,
so key. I mean, when you just said that right now, I can't even think. Like right now, as we speak, we have a session going on. This will be the second day of completion. Once they complete, they're going to go right in right now after their scenario-based training, and they're going to go have an evaluation of everything that they've done. When they've completed that, they're going to go onto the workforce. They're going to get evaluated again.
Yes.
Feedback's going to be right. Evaluation must have come hand in hand.
To be. How do you get better? How do you adjust things that aren't quite working right without the evaluation? So every course we run, the students have an opportunity to evaluate us as well.
That's good.
And then that's when we look at stats like I gave you earlier, you know, in terms of acceptance of our training, it's based on those evaluations, and we have thousands of them. And then I get a researcher to put it together and look at different criteria and see how we're doing. And we've actually developed whole courses based on those evaluations.
Oh, wow.
I'll give you an example is confined space in transit. So working on buses. You know, the need was identified within different cities that we need to have some experience actually working on a bus because it's a small space. It has a lot of issues. It's moving.
Yes.
Right? It's in transit. So we actually developed that. That came to our attention as a need through over and over again. We were getting evaluations from transit people we're working with. And from that, now we have a full program on that.
Wow.
So it helps us too. It helps us see where's the need that we're not filling or where are we missing the boat a little bit.
So an example like that, you'll do the training on the bus?
Yeah, we do it actually right on the buses.
Okay. And the buses are moving like in speed with Keanu
Oh,
Reeves?
no. we get a bus, it
Yeah.
gets parked, and then we spend the day doing reality-based training on the actual buses so
Yes.
they're in their environments.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to stand in a big classroom and talk about this. When you have the seats that are right there beside you, you have the bars above you, it's different. It's a very different space.
Yeah, I like that.
So working in an environment like that is great. When we talk about confined spaces, we do it generally working in stairwells and bathrooms because those are two realistic environments
Yes.
that they're going to find themselves working in. So we use those as our environment that we teach it in.
Okay.
So we'll do the basic skill building somewhere else, but then we bring them to those environments and we start applying it in a real world setting.
That's really, really
So
good.
that's
man.
important too, is we really stress a lot the application piece, you know. And you know, I'd say that one of the biggest things that we do that's might be different than others is we do detailed teach backs by our students. So I'll teach a content piece, or another instructor will, and then we sit back after they've had a chance to absorb it, work it, they teach it to us.
Okay.
And my premise is you teach it to me like I've never heard it before.
Wow.
And in doing that, now I really get a sense of
How much have they retained?
how much they retained. And then I play the heckler in the back, right?
Yes, yeah.
Throwing out the questions and stuff. And my experience with that is they do great. And I tell them up front so they know. So what that does is encourages good note taking. It encourages the phones to go away so they're paying attention. It encourages because they know at any time I can call on you and say, I need you to teach that to the class right now. So they're always on high alert. But the result you get from that is amazing. These guys know their stuff when we leave.
And would this be like when you're referring to like a trainer program, like a trainer kind of program?
Even users, I do that.
Okay, I see.
So definitely a trainer, 100%.
Yes.
But even on the user programs, we just have them teach it back to us. And it's not necessarily a big deal where they have to do a whole lecture. It's just like, talk to me about this concept. You know, you got 5 minutes. Go.
Yes.
And they have to tell me about it. Like we're having a conversation
Yes,
about
that's
it.
right.
And I'll pick their brain about it to see, have they really connected the dots?
Well, if you can't articulate it, how can you practice it? How can you
Exactly.
put it into
Exactly.
and even teach it?
Perfect
Yeah.
practice first, right? And
That's
that
it.
comes from the knowledge of knowing what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
You know, my example to that would be these guys that go out and they work the heavy bags all the time. That's good. But the heavy bag never hits you back.
That's right. That's right.
Heavy bag never hits you back. So at some point, you actually have to deal with another person. If you want to learn boxing. If
Yeah.
it's just fitness, great. But if you actually want to learn boxing, you actually have to stand in front of someone else because they hit back.
That's it. That's when
And
sparring
it's-
comes
it's
into
very
play.
different.
Yeah, exactly. It's
very different.
Okay, so someone does the training. A company puts their employees through training. What is the recommended amount of time before another training session happens? A year, 2 years? What is the recommended guidelines?
They should have a top up within 6 months. Actually,
Okay.
if you look at how we learn and stuff. So the way that it's not feasible to bring them back and do in-person training every 6 months, and that's just not going to happen. Although that would be ideal. So what we offer is an online top up. So you've come through an actual in-person course. You've done the RBT. You've done all that skill-based training. You're now out in the real world applying it. And around the 6-month mark, you come back to us through online content. And we give you all the key concepts back to you. And it just refreshes you in terms of, why am I doing this? What did this mean? What was this? We do that at a 6-month mark. And I find that it's really good at just solidifying again. Because after 6 months, maybe it started to slide a little bit.
Yeah.
It just reminds them, no, go back to where you were before. And that we found that to be a pretty good model. And then obviously within about 12 months, you want to get back to some of the physical stuff. 'Cause 12 months is a long time to go without practicing something.
Oh, big time.
If you and I did handcuff, you've never done handcuffing before. I spent 2 days. I taught you how to do it today. And then your first arrest was in September. you're probably going to have problems.
I think I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I also think this applies for many industries. I remember talking to my brother who's in sales, and he was telling me that if he's not actively selling, right, and I know he was transitioning between jobs a couple of years ago.
The skill sets drop.
Yes, and so for him, he would tell me, "Bring me in." He goes, let me do some stuff for your clients. Let me try to do this, because for me, it was about let me get my sword nice and sharp, or else you start losing that.
Exactly.
So it's anything. It's the same thing about going to the gym. You stop going to the gym, guess what? Your body will tell you right away that you stopped going to the gym.
But the investment for companies is, yes, everyone deteriorates.
Yes.
But if you have that core base training done the right way, you get it back a lot faster.
Yeah, that's back to the gym again.
You get it back a lot
back to
faster.
muscle memory.
Yes.
Yes.
So although you will deteriorate,
yes,
you're going to come back pretty quick. If you haven't had those core basic skills done the right way, it's like starting over.
Yes.
Because you don't have the depth. You never really got it.
Right.
So it's not there.
Right.
And, I always feel like I want to get it out, the content out of people's heads and get it into their heart. Like they really know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They know it inside and out,
It comes to just as easy as breathing. You don't pay attention to it.
Right.
You just do it.
You just do it.
Yeah.
We'll do like, and there's many cities I work with, so I'm not picking on any particular one. So there's many cities. But if we do challenges on them as to their authorities, why you're doing that, I find that many of them struggle. They struggle, although they've passed a test at some point in time to say they know what, the TPA is and all that kind of stuff. In the moment when I say, well, what's your authority to look at my bag right now? They're like, deer in the headlight, like, I don't know. And then even worse, it's one thing to not know. It's another to say the wrong thing.
That's it, man.
And then that's caught on the phone. Like, well, your guys are thinking this is the case. It's not true. It just opens up so many things. So even the most basic things like your authorities under the Trespass Property Act or, making an arrest under the criminal code, if that's the case, you need to know that stuff. But just because you gave them a test 12 months ago, don't think for 1 second that they're all remembering what it is now. You have to bring them back to that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
On a regular basis, which is why the annual use of force or incident response type training doesn't need to be complicated. It just has to ensure that we're hitting those core pieces and that they know that stuff inside and out. And then maybe add one little add-on that's new.
Yes.
But you don't have to have 10 new things.
That's it, man.
Right?
That's
You
it.
don't have to have 10 new things. Yeah, it's just too many things.
That's right.
Right?
Well, look, I'll say this. Today we've learned a lot. And, a lot of the stuff that you said, I'm in complete agreement with. I think it's much needed. I think it's very relevant. And I think the way I would sum it up is that a skilled individual is a very, very, and I hear people in the U.S. say this, but when I first heard it, I thought it was like, it doesn't sound right, but they say it's a very dangerous individual. What I mean by that is dangerous for the other person, meaning as in the fact that you have the edge of skill, of mindset,
right,
of the ability that you have full control to make that decision, right? So I think everything that we're hearing today is huge. I think it's very applicable, and I encourage businesses to reach out. How do people find STEP training?
Well, we do a lot of work through word of mouth, but we're always on the website. We have our website there. All the social media things, you can find us in those areas as well.
Okay.
And then we have a lot of municipal clients, so there's a lot of word of mouth stuff going along. We also do a lot of work in terms of trying to reach out and do presentations at annual events and things like that, like speaking events and stuff, and just sort of get the message out there.
Very nice.
Our message is highly skilled people doing the things that they're supposed to do in the right way. That's what we want to do.
Amazing.
But that means the base has to be there.
Absolutely. And again, for anyone listening, this is not for law enforcement only and security only. This is for a various amount of industries.
Anyone in frontline capacity.
That's it.
And even in your personal lives.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Right? It's there. And then we didn't talk about today, but you tie in physiology to that and how your physiology affects some of your decisions and things. And that's another topic. But these things are all tied together.
That's right.
And that's what we want to focus on in our training.
Okay. Well, I think maybe is it premature to say that you're also looking to putting out some content down the road with a podcast? Am I calling that out too prematurely?
It's been on my list for a while, yes, and I'm actually moving in that direction. Yes.
Well, I encourage you to move in that direction because there's so much relevant topics that you can be talking about, bringing awareness and exposure. I mean, I had a conversation yesterday with a nutritionist on our show, and she's saying things to me that in my 45th year of life, I'm thinking, oh my God, like really? That's what so I think the awareness piece is huge, Steve, and I want to commend you for that. You're doing a service that is very much needed, and I support that. And I would just love for people to connect with you and be able to just literally have, in my opinion, a change of life.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I really do.
Amazing, man. Any last words? Anything at all that you'd like to say to the audience?
Go out and look for Corvettes, not Cavaliers.
Okay.
Because they're a lot better to drive, and they handle the road a lot better.
And for someone who has driven both, okay, I actually had it. Yeah, you're 100% right. In fact, I actually posted yesterday. The OPP was just gifted by Chevrolet a Corvette.
Oh wow!
For as a recruitment drive, not for but it's a pretty cool car.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Looking forward to it. Again, for those listening, steptraininginc.com. Make sure to check it out. Have a fantastic day, and thank you for coming
everybody.
on the show.
Thanks for listening.
Take care. See ya.
Bye now.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.